You are watching a news presentation from Peter. It's 10 o'clock in the morning. The main story here is that officials say China has no choice but to rely temporarily on coal for electricity. Energy conservation and emission reduction are currently the focus of the world. And China is no exception. China has ambitious targets to cut carbon emissions. But as long as it keeps a firm focus on economic goals, it will not abandon coal-fired power immediately. President Xi Jinping said in September that China's carbon emissions would start to fall by 2030, and he said that by 2060, the country would be carbon neutral in 40 years. Policymakers have made it clear that coal-fired power is a big part of economic growth. Beijing's GDP target for this year is 6%, a level analysts say will allow authority to tackle long-term problems such as the country's high base level. So we said China's energy mix is dominated by coal power generation. This is an objective reality. Deputy Secretary General of the National Development and Reform Commission, Su said, since renewable energy from wind and solar is intermittent and unstable, we must rely on stable energy. We have no choice. We may need to use coal power as a flexible point of adjustment for some time. Su believes that coal is easily available and that renewable energy needs to be further developed in China. On Tuesday, when CNBC asked whether Beijing would follow South Korea's pledge to stop public financing of overseas coal-fired power plants, China's Ministry of Ecology said China would continue to finance coal-fired power generation in developing countries. Li Gao said China supports some developing countries in building coal-fired power plants overseas. Director General of the Foreign Ministry's Climate Change Department told reporters in Mandarin, China provides this support according to local conditions. He said there is no other way to generate electricity in many developing countries that don't have electricity without using coal. In 2020 alone, China Development Bank and the Export-Import Bank of China jointly funded $474 million in coal projects outside China. According to the Center for Global Development Policy and Boston University, the same report also showed a steady decline in financing for cross-border energy projects in China since 2016. At its climate summit last week, she called for international cooperation in reducing carbon emissions, adding that different countries should play different role in reduce carbon emissions. He didn't identify any country by name. Mr. Xi said China would strictly control coal-fired power generation projects and limit coal consumption growth over the next 5 years. He said the cuts would take place over the next 5 years. Chinese authorities have close restricted carbon emissions in targeted ways this year. For example, by calling on the Tangshan steelmaking central to cut production. but China is still building more coal-fired power plants. Last year, China added more than 3 times as much coal power capacity as the rest of the world combined. According to analysis by the US-based Global Energy Monitor, China is the world's largest consumer of coal. Late last year, as power demand soared, parts of the country saw coal shortage as limiting local power use. China's electricity consumption rose 3.1% last year, according to official figures. Analyze with the China Recovery Program said in report last month that the Chinese government aims to reduce the share of heavy carbon fuels in the country's energy consumption to 20% by 2025. But they point out that the falling cost of renewable is not enough to spur more major industry shifts. We believe that the current system is overwhelmingly supportive of coal, in part because it is more stable and wind and solar are volatile, less volatile. The report said uncertain market access has slowed investment in renewables, given the interests of coal and the construction industry. The required reforms may require considerable political will.